it's Miss Stilwell and Hudson, and we're back to continue reading The Jungle Book. Yesterday, we had finished the section that was like a throwback of Mowgli's adventures when he was a younger boy, and the theme of friendship was very strong throughout that entire section, with his friends Baloo and Bagheera and even Kaa coming to rescue him when he was kidnapped by the monkeys. We are going to be starting a new section called Tiger Tiger. So, I bet you could guess who this section is going to be mostly about. Now we go back to the first tale. When Mowgli left the jungle after his fight with the wolves at Council Rock, he went down to the village at the foot of the hill. But he did not stop there. It was too close to the jungle. He hurried on down the rough road for nearly 20 miles until he came to a place where he had never been. He stood in a valley that opened on to a plain cut by deep streams. At one end was a village, and at the other end, the thick jungle came down to touch the grounds where the cattle were grazing. When the boys in charge of the herd saw Mowgli, they shouted and ran away. The yellow dogs that hang about every Indian village barked. Mowgli kept walking. He walked right up to the village gate. To one side, Mowgli saw the big thorn bush that would be placed in front of the gate at twilight. So men are afraid of the jungle people, Mowgli said to himself. He sat down by the gate, and when a man came by, Mowgli opened his mouth and pointed into it to show that he wanted food. The man stared and ran up the village street, shouting for the priest. Then the priest, who was a big, fat man dressed in white, with a red and yellow mark on his forehead, came down to the gate with at least 100 people behind him. Everyone stared and talked and shouted at Mowgli. Mowgli did not know what they were saying, for he had never learned the language of man. They have no manners, Mowgli said to himself. Only the gray ape would behave like this. He frowned at the crowd. There is nothing to be afraid of, the priest announced. Look at the marks on his arms and legs. They are wolf bites. He is nothing but a wolf child run away from the jungle. Mowgli's limbs were covered in little white scars where the cubs had nipped him harder than they meant to when they played together. But Mowgli would never have called them bites, for he knew what a real bite was. 2 or 3 of the women cried out, Poor child, bitten by wolves. He is a handsome boy. Messua, doesn't he look like your boy? The one that was taken by the tiger? Let me look, said the woman, with heavy copper rings on her wrists and ankles. She peered at Mowgli beneath her palm. He is thinner, she said, but he has the look of my boy. The clever priest knew Messua had a rich husband who could afford to take in the boy. So he looked up at the sky for a moment and said solemnly, What the jungle has taken, the jungle has restored. Sister, take the boy to your house. By the buffalo that bought me, Mowgli said to himself, all of this talk is like the looking over of the pack. If I am truly a man I must become. He followed the beckoning woman to her hut. Messua gave Mowgli a long drink of milk and some bread. Then she looked into his eyes. She thought he truly be her son. Nathu, Nathu, she called to him. Do you remember when I gave you your first shoes? She touched his feet. The bottoms were as hard as horn, and Mowgli did not show any sign of remembering. No, Messua sighed. These feet have never worn shoes. But you are like my Nathu, and you will be my son. Mowgli felt uneasy. He had never been under a roof before, and when he looked closer, he saw that he could tear the thatch away if he needed to escape. What good is a man if he doesn't understand man's talk? Mowgli thought. I must learn to speak like the people of the village. So, as soon as Messua pronounced a word, Mowgli imitated it, almost perfectly. Before dark, he had learned the names of many things in the hut. Bedtime was difficult. Mowgli did not want to sleep under anything that looked like a panther trap. When Mowgli's new parents shut the door, Mowgli went out the window. Let him go, said Messua's husband. He has never slept in a bed before, and if he is truly our son, he will not run away. Mowgli stretched out in some clean grass on the edge of the field, but before he had closed his eyes, a soft gray nose poked him under the chin. Phew, said Gray Brother, the oldest of Mother's wolf cubs. Little brother, you smell of wood smoke and cattle, like a man. This is the reward I get for following you 20 miles? Mowgli hugged the wolf. Are all well in the jungle, he asked. All except the wolves burned by the red flower, and Shere Khan. He has gone to hunt far away until his coat grows back. But listen, he has promised that when he returns, He will lay your bones in the Wenunga River, Gray Brother said. I have made a promise myself, Mowgli replied. Tonight I am tired for so many new things, but it is good to have news. Gray Brother, will you always bring me the news? Will you forget you are a wolf? Gray Brother asked anxiously. Never. I will always remember that I love you and the others that I grew up in our cave with, Mowgli answered. But I will also remember that I have been cast out by the pack. You may be cast out of another pack. Men are only men, little brother, Gray Wolf said. When I come next, I will wait in the bamboo on the edge of the grazing ground. For 3 months, Mowgli hardly left the village gate. He was busy learning the ways of men. He had to wear a cloth around his waist, which annoyed him terribly. He had to learn about money, which he did not understand at all. He also learned to plow the field, which he thought was useless. The other children in the village were not always nice to Mowgli. Luckily, the law of the jungle had taught him to keep his temper. That and the knowledge that it was unsportsmanlike to kill naked cubs kept him from hurting the village children when they made fun of him. Mowgli could have caused a lot of damage. In the jungle, he was weak compared to the beast, but in the village, Mowgli was said to be as strong as a buffalo. Many of the village rules confused Mowgli. He did not understand the strange customs of men, so he made many mistakes. To keep Mowgli out of trouble, the priest recommended that he be sent to work as soon as possible. When the village headman assigned Mowgli to take the buffalo to graze the next day, no one was happier than Mowgli. The night he was appointed to be a herder, Mowgli went to the village circle. The men of the village met under a great fig tree to smoke and gossip. The headman and the barber and old Buldeo, the village hunter, were gathered there along with many others. They sat around late into the night telling wonderful tales of gods and men and ghosts. Above them, the monkeys in the trees listened. Below them, under a platform, a sacred cobra lay curled up with a plate of milk. Old Buldeo told the best tales. When he spoke of the ways of the jungle beasts, the eyes of the children listening just outside the circle bulged out of their heads. Naturally, Mowgli knew more about the beasts than Buldeo. As Buldeo spoke, Mowgli had to cover his face so the villagers wouldn't see him laughing. Buldeo told everyone that the tiger who took Messua's son was really a ghost tiger, whose body was inhabited by the spirit of a long-dead moneylender. I know it is true because the tiger walked with a limp, just as Purnam Das did. He got the limp in a riot when his accounting books were burned. The graybeards nodded together. True, true, they said. Mowgli's shoulders shook with laughter. Are all of these tales such nonsense, he said. Everyone knows that Shere Khan was born lame. For a moment, Buldeo was speechless. Oh, if you are so smart, perhaps you should bring the tiger's hide to Kanihara. The government has promised 100 rupees for it. Better yet, jungle brat, do not speak when your elders are talking. Mowgli's laughter turned to anger. He did not like to be scolded, and he stalked off. It is high time that boy went herding, the headman said, as Mowgli walked away from the circle. The next morning, Mowgli rode through the village on the back of Rama, the great herd bull. The buffalo rose up from their mangers one by one to follow him. In most Indian villages, it is the job of a few young boys to take the domestic cattle and water buffalo out to graze in the morning and bring them back at night. As long as the boys stay with the herds, they are safe, for not even a tiger will charge a mob of cattle. Mowgli quickly made it clear to the other children tending the herds that he was in charge. He told the other boys to graze the cattle while he went on with the buffalo. Then he drove the buffalo to the edge of the jungle, dropped off Rama's neck, and trotted over to a clump of bamboo. I have been waiting for days, Gray Brother said, emerging from the foliage. What are you doing herding? It is an order. I am working for the village, Mowgli replied impatiently. Now, tell me about Shere Khan. He came back and waited for you for a long time, Gray Brother said, but now he is gone again because food is scarce. Still, he intends to kill you. Good, said Mowgli. As long as he is away, I want you or one of your brothers to sit upon that rock so I can see you as I ride out to the village. When he returns, wait for me in the ravine by the great tree in the center of the plain. I will not walk into Shere Khan's mouth. Then Mowgli lay down in a shady spot and slept while the buffalo grazed and wallowed in the mud. So it seems like Mowgli is trying to plan an attack on Shere Khan. I wonder what's going to happen next. I hope you guys have a great day and a great weekend heading into the end of Friday here. All right, bye everybody.